Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending upon where you're joining us from around the globe. This is Robert Leake, Director of Marketing here at eFolder Accent, and I would like to welcome you to another episode of MSP Ignition. We're mixing it up a little bit for you guys who are our return guests. We're starting off with a little music to spice things up, and hopefully it's a little funk to start our Wednesday. I think is a good way. So really excited about today. We're here again with Tom Watson, our host for the MSP Ignition series. How you doing, Tom?
Great, Robert.
All right, and Sam, our reliable productionist, how are you, sir?
Good.
All right, and just for everyone, we're going to go through just a few housekeeping items before we get in. We will be recording today's episode, so if you have any issues or whatever, you want to go back and check on the content that we're going through, you'll have that opportunity when Sam sends out the follow-up notes to everyone. Subsequently, we will be doing Q&A at the end, but of course, if you've got questions, and Tom, I think we're looking to make this as interactive today as possible, right?
That's right, Robert. I've seen a lot of these other ones going on about costing, and my thing is I want to keep this really simple, not to take too much of your time, have some interaction, throw questions out as you have them. We're going to hit them throughout the presentation.
That sounds great. But so yeah, feed us those questions in the Q&A section of your GoToWebinar. We'll definitely address them as much as we can, and certainly towards the end. To Tom's point, we're going to try to make this a very effective 30 to 45 minutes with us today, but we're happy to hang around for as long as we need to make sure we get through everyone's questions. I think that's about it for the costing calculator, or for our housekeeping items, I should say. Before we get too far down into the costing calculator conversation, I do want to make sure that everyone is familiar with who we are here at Accent eFolder. We are a data protection company dedicated to the MSP channel at our soul. Our first solution back up there on the bottom right portion of the screen was our first solution, that file level backup that our own CTO actually wrote the code for almost 15 years ago and really planted the seed for what we consider the IT channel's most powerful suite of data protection solutions. Because what backup did was give us a nice foundation in the channel, but also positioned us to see that the market was changing, both from a technology perspective as well as from how people were doing business. And we saw the needs for additional paths to protecting data, additional layers perhaps. And what we did is we went out and made strategic investments to bring in solutions like Anchor, which is truly so much more than file sync and share. But it is a productivity tool, it is a secure file sync and share tool, and it is a productivity tool that really allows your clients to manage their data and their collaboration at a very granular level. Also comes with the ability to remove file servers, as well as provide ransomware insurance at the file level. So a lot of services and features there with Anchor. We then went to the cloud perspective. We knew that Office 365 was going to blow up, and that's what Cloud Finder does, is it backs up with an infinite amount of protection the data within your Office 365 environment. And that's for email, that's for calendars, contacts, and SharePoint as well. We're really excited about what that's doing and the ability that it can add margin to your Office 365 deployments. And then lastly is really the business continuity side of our business. And we knew that business continuity was going to become even more critical to MSPs. And so what we've got is actually options within this category of our business. And we have two different flavors there, Replicate being an extremely strong on-site protection. It comes with our own appliances. It allows you the flexibility to bring your own appliances or even house it within your own data centers if you have that kind of built out and you're working with that with your partners. Subsequently, BRC is a wonderful cloud virtualization technology. If you have clients that their minutes means dollars, and subsequently their minutes means dollars, means they're blowing up your phones and eating away your tech times, BRC is a really great solution for that because you can virtualize instantly within the cloud and have them truly running their infrastructure on the BRC. So that's who we are. Subsequently, as it relates to BRC, we've got a slide dedicated to it. It is a newer solution to our suite. And the key there is really that it is an image-based solution, but it does actually a wide variety of protecting your data, both at the server level, the database level, even the more granular levels. And I mentioned the IT infrastructure and that full office virtualization there at the bottom. That's where you can literally point and click and have one of your clients up and running in the BRC cloud. So that's just a little bit about who we are. If you've got any questions, please feel free to reach out, let us know, and we would love to talk to you about, a little bit more about what we do. But that's not why we're truly here today. Why we're truly here today is to talk about MSP Ignition. And again, Tom, for those people who are joining us for the first time today, can you just give us a little bit about yourself and the program?
Yeah, I put this slide in, a little rundown on who I am, what I do. I know we have some new people here on the call today. Basically, I'm a former MSP owner. I was in business for 15 years. And I went through the entire process of converting to managed services and ran, at the end, 100% managed service agreement-based MSP. I exited 3 years ago. I did so of my own accord and profitably, and took a few years off, but then had a really interesting offer from my friends Matt Nacktrub and Adam Sluskin, asked me to come out here to eFolder Axiom and put together a program where I could help MSPs be better business people, learn how to profit, and bring my experience to help you guys leverage it. And so I came on in October 2017, really excited because this is our 12th MSP Ignition webinar, and I'm here for you. And I encourage you to interact with us. Make sure you understand the material we're presenting here. I want you to get value. And if you have any questions later on, I am available. Reach out to me.
I heard you're going on the road soon.
I am. As a matter of fact, I am going on the road, Texas Roadshow, 4 cities in Texas, June 4th through 8th with Gary Hill. He's one of our SEs, and we're looking forward to that. If you have any more information, you're in Texas, please email us. Okay, so what we're going to cover today, this is going to be about my costing calculator. And this is pretty cool. I have gotten the ability to use my costing calculator that I own as an MSP, and I am going to show you all how I used it to make money, and I'm going to show you how you can use it, and then you're going to feel free to have a copy of it. We're going to pass it to you. It's an Excel spreadsheet, and you can use it in your business. Hopefully it will help. So what we're going to cover today is what can go wrong in pricing. I'm going to go over pretty quickly some of the major pitfalls I see. I had my MSP, and I see with MSPs, and what you can do to avoid those. Making sure you profit on your managed service agreements. I'm sure everyone out there has put together an agreement at some point where they didn't make money at the end of the day. I'm going to teach you how to make sure that doesn't happen. And I'm going to teach you also and talk about how pricing and transparency builds trust with your clients. And doing it in a certain way that I put forth isn't the only way to price, and isn't the only discussion to have with your clients, but it worked well for me, and I think it builds that lasting value with the client. They can see what you're bringing to them, and they understand the pricing that's simple. So I have a question for you all, and this is not a polling question. This is just a straight question you can answer on your screens. And I'd like to ask you if anyone out there can throw out what kind of gross profit margin are you trying to achieve within your managed service agreements. So when you add up your basic cost of providing that service agreement, with those being your tech hours, the various SaaS services you're supplying, any of the software, hardware, whatever, and then you price it out, what are you hoping to achieve?
And Tom, you just mentioned some of the variables that are kind of driving that gross profit margin number. You said hardware, obviously software, the tech hours. What other variables that did you experience that might be the hidden variables if folks are just getting started, or maybe kind of find things that are challenges to see in their business?
Yeah, there could be some interesting ones there. I mean, I sometimes even include, and we'll get to in the sheet, like administrative costs. You might have some overhead that you didn't even see coming, or you might have someone you pay hourly that's managing a relationship with a vendor, and those costs need to be factored in to what it's costing for that software. And the other one, my big one, is always looking at technician hours, and we're going to get into that pretty deeply, because that's where your money's going. Your money's going into your techs, and your profit's coming from reducing the number of technical support hours you do on a contract.
And Tom, just so you know, it looks like we're getting a myriad of responses here, some outliers for sure, but it looks like we're floating somewhere between the more popular answers between 8 and 20%.
Yeah, that's I think on a net margin. That's probably what it is. I'm looking for the gross profit margin, and we'll get that into the sheet, what I mean by that, because I exclude like your costs, your basic cost of doing business, which would be like your rent and your vehicles and stuff like that. I look for just, and that's what I wanted to get, because I want to get everyone on the same page. I'm looking for really the combination of service hours, so that's the technician time, your hosted exchange, your file sync and share, your backups, all that kind of stuff together. And then you can factor in that later, because I have a number. My magic number is 60%. I'm going to show everyone. At 60% gross profit margin, you're going to realize a profit once you get to net.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, wonderful. Maybe then we can just dive right into kind of the next thing.
I think so. So my thing is understanding your true cost for technicians per hour. And the way I calculated this was I would take what I'm paying a technician, and then I would add generally for all the HR costs, you know, the insurance, everything else I'm providing them, I would generally add about another $10,000 to $15,000 per year. I mean, that's usually what it is in a major metropolitan area you're operating. And then I would take that number and I would figure out how many hours does that technician, if I were to bill their time, which I'm not because I'm doing managed services, if I were to bill their time hourly, how many legitimate number of billable hours could I get out of that person per year after I take out their vacation time, sick time, anything else, or just inefficient hours. And a lot of times you'll come around, it depends on how you set up your business, where you are, but you might come up with between 20 and 40 true billable hours per week. Often I think it often sits around 25 to 30. Some people might argue with me about that, but I would say if you look at them working 50 hours a week, you're probably looking at them probably doing, for every true hour they bill, 0.25 hours for administrative hours that can't be billed. So I look at that. The other thing is, you're going to be buying managed services today. You're going to be basing your business after technician hours. You're going to be basing it basically on SaaS model in terms of buying those services and reselling them, and really understanding what you're paying for things. Like a lot of times you'll buy backup and it will all be lumped together. And you need to break that down, what you're paying per client, what you're paying per gig, what you're paying monthly for that client. So that's one of the mistakes that I put in here. Not normalizing all your SaaS that you're paying for to a monthly. Understanding, having everything down to a monthly so you can evaluate what you should charge someone, and you can also then go back and you can look at what your cost was in terms of that monthly, because everything is brought down to a monthly. So if you're buying something per year, or you're paying per week, or you're paying for license perpetually, you need to look at the life of that. I tell people too, it's kind of one of these things. I look at it like how people tell me their car doesn't cost them anything because they paid it off already. I'm like, no, if you bought the car for cash and you're going to drive it for 5 years, well, you need to divide that 60 months into what you paid for the car, because that's what you paid for it per month. Same thing with this. If you bought licenses for something, you need to estimate, and you paid for them up front a certain amount, and maybe you're done with it, you need to estimate what it actually costs you, because how long are you going to use those?
So we're not necessarily talking about depreciation here on a vehicle and things of that nature, but really just amortizing those NRCs, those non-recurring costs to your business, making sure you've got some accountability when you're looking at monthly costs, so you're making sure to recover them. Is that what I'm hearing?
Because you did buy it. You put money out for that. So at some point you have to recoup that as a part of becoming profitable.
Gotcha.
And then the other thing is, I see many contracts, and I certainly was guilty of this early on, I just wanted to get a contract, and I didn't charge enough. And it's like, if they don't want to say yes to the amount you need to make per month, don't come to them. They need to come to you, because that gross profit percentage that you have decided upon is absolutely essential to you making profit. And if they're not going to come to it, you don't want to take that contract, because you're probably going to lose money.
And just to maybe a point of clarification for myself, at least, I'm certainly the dumb guy in the room with all the brains, but when we say, gross profit per contract, this is more of a number that you've got. This isn't the number that's actually written in the contract, or is it?
No, that's going to be the contract cost. The gross profit is just for me internally and my people, my salespeople, to figure out what we need to charge to become profitable.
Perfect.
So this is a big discussion, and making sure you profit in managed services. And the big discussion I really see is, I see so many people out there teaching managed services best practices and saying you should just go unlimited hours in every contract. And I could not disagree more. I don't understand where this comes up with that you treat all clients the same. I just don't. I mean, you can say you want to, but why would you treat the client that's paying you $4,000 a month the same as the one that's paying you $1,500? I mean, the fact is you're making a lot more money and probably a lot more profit off the larger value contract. You should have different rules for them. Those rules are, there are a couple things. They're SLA. They are also, though, when to offer unlimited or limited hours. And what I did was, if I had a contract that was under $2,000 a month I was charging, I did not give them unlimited hours. I capped their hours at a certain amount and had overages, because you save yourself there, because those small clients, as we all know out there, those are the ones that are really going to kill you in cost. They're going to chew up your overhead. If you give them unlimited hours and you think you're only going to give them 20, oh, they're going to use 25. Yeah. And then you might have you can spiral that contract quickly to the point where it's not profitable. My thing is that reserve the unlimited hour contracts for the ones who are really paying you and that are making profit, and also the larger clients, because they're often better at managing their people, and they often have a buffer in between. But save that, and we're going to get into that in the spreadsheet. And then my big thing is that people have a hard time figuring out what to charge on managed service agreements. And my thing is rely on historical. It's the way I really learned how to cost managed service agreements. Whereas I would look, I had all the data before I went full managed services, and I already had a few contracts. I was able to go and say, okay, I've got law firm XYZ here, and they use this many hours per month, and they have 20 users. And I've got this other law firm here, and they use this many hours. And so I was able to produce averages of what hours would be for a law firm that was managed in that way and those sizes. And that way I could figure out how many hours I need to include, what pricing I need to do on that. So I would constantly use historical across clients and not just within a client. And then my thing is too, is that when you have contracts, and especially if you have clients that are growing, you probably often will put in your contract an overage. So if you allow for 25 computers and 25 users, you'll probably give them an allowance of 3 or 4 until the pricing increases. You don't want to be nickel and diming them and send a new invoice or updated agreement every month. You want to be able to just line item it. So what I would do is I would constantly reevaluate these contracts. Usually every 3 to 4 months, I would sit down with the salespeople that did them for me, and we would run these spreadsheets again. Literally, I know everyone's got ConnectWise out there, AutoTask. It has some of these features, but it doesn't give you the visual and the ability to interact with the numbers quite as well as I'm going to show you. And then having the overage allotments in your contract. So if it says you're going to handle 25 users per month, you got to give them some room, because you want to reduce the management headache on your end, and increase and make it so it's easy for the client too, and make them not feel like they're nickel and dime. Also, not make them feel like you have to sign a new contract or anything like that. Give them room to grow, and give them room, and make it so you're not billing them additionally every time they add a user. Maybe you only do it every time they add 3 or 4 or 5 users, depending on the size. But make it simple. It also simplifies the billing on your end, and write it into your contract so you can increase what you're charging them without having to get a new sign-off and a new contract.
Hey, 1 second. We did get a question come in from Norman, and I think you touched on it a little bit, Tom, but you mentioned the PSAs and that part of the equation with the historical data across clients to help you understand kind of what that is. So did you say that the historical understanding is available to manage in the PSA, or is it some one-off kind of by hand calculations as well?
Yeah, and thanks, Norman. That's a great question. So this is where your PSA comes in handy, because what you can do is you can go, so you get a new client, and maybe they're a consulting firm of 35 people, and you have similar consulting firms or accounting firms which often bill similarly, and you would go back and look at those old clients and pull from ConnectWise or AutoTask and pull a report of how many hours they use on average per month. And then you can use that and apply that number to this new contract. But I'm very big on not trying to guess what it's going to cost me to support a new client. I'm going to use it based on what my other clients already do.
So it should be in the PSAs, just be able to extract that, maybe put it in your own file, maybe what we're about to dive into, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, we will. I mean, it's a big part of this.
Let's. I think it's our point to jump right into the tool. Yeah.
Yep, I'm giving control over to Tom right now.
Awesome. And it's coming through, Tom.
All right. So we're live?
Yes.
Okay, so this is what we have here. This is kind of a cleaned up version of a sheet that I used for many years. I mean, I probably used this thing for 5 years at my MSP, and it's just a spreadsheet I've seen a lot of other things that are very much more complicated. I like it because it shows you the equations exactly what's happening. So this is a blank version. You all will be able to download this, and you can download right now, right?
Yep, right from the webinar client.
And you also will be given an email where you have access to this and the slides and this recording. But basically, this is the blank one, and this is what you're going to fill in. I'm just going to show you guys some of the things. I fill in plan name, and then I'm going to go to a version that's already filled in. These are the important ones to get in here. How many users do you support? PCs and Macs, servers. Because we want this total number. That's going to compute. That's our first equation. And right here we have our most important number, because this is where you're going to have most of your cost that goes out the door, your tech support hours. And I'm going to get into why this is so important and how I factor this in and how I make this the profit center of what I do. Of course, I have in here a couple things. My backup by gigs, secondary backup, if you have another one of those, BDR. And of course, on any one of these sheets, you guys know, you know these spreadsheets, you can insert another one that's going to carry the calculations through, and you can add whatever you need. And we have in here file sync and share. As you know, we do have Anchor, so we're kind of referring to that in here or whatever else you use. I think it's an important part and very good to leverage in your managed service agreements to make money. Your RMM costs, your antivirus costs, and please remember, everyone, these costs, you need to have these down to a monthly of what it costs you. Web filtering, if you're doing anything like that, web hosting, I would always add things like there, server host. So I used to do a lot of server hosts. I'd buy the server and assume my cost on it would be that I'd pay it off within a year for me internally. So that's right there. So now I'm going to switch over to, I've got this other sheet. This is going to show you, this is filled in. So everyone can see it. Any questions, just throw them out there. So what I'm doing here is I'm assuming this is going to be a silver level contract. I would assume this silver level contract is going to be capped at 20 hours. This is not an unlimited amount contract. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put in here some numbers, and we'll see what happens. So on this contract, I'm going to assume that they're going to use 20 right off the bat. And then we're going to see what happens when I reevaluate this contract later on. So I got 20 users. I'm assuming it's these guys need a lot of work. A lot of places you'll get a half hour per user per month. I'm assuming that these users are very needy, and we're doing an hour per user per month. This might not be, like I said, the point of this sheet is you can put whatever you want in here, but know your technician cost per hour. I'm assuming 50 here. Might be fair for a lot of you out there. Backup, I'm looking at 300 gigs, $60 a month. But as of course, my big cost, as you all know, is going to be my tech support hours. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to assume they just have essentials email accounts, $450. Maybe I'm buying them from Ingram somewhere like that, a little discount. 5 might be your whatever it is. If I'm doing one of these other Office 365 options, I'm going to switch it over, as you can see, and do and just take out the 20 and fill in one of these other ones. File sync and share. Your RMM agents, what they cost per month, your antivirus for every machine. And then what I'm going to do down here. So as we see, as I'm pricing this out, this is where the important stuff really happens. Pricing right here is $2,100, and I've got some conditional formatting in this percentage gross profit. And what I'm trying to do is achieve 60. So what I'm going to do is to literally just play with this thing, and I'm like, oh, not quite enough. And I'm not getting it. So maybe I sit there and assume, well, historically speaking, maybe I can over time, not at first, but I can get this contract down to where it's only costing me in terms of man hours 15. Can I make that adjustment to make this work? And I look back at my historical other contracts I have in place and go, yeah, you know what? I've had luck with very similar clients. I can get them down to 15, and I can cap their hours at 15 and maybe charge them a little less and achieve this. So now all of a sudden I go to 54, I go up to 2,500, not quite there. 2,800 is my magic number I just achieved. It turns green, 62% gross profit. What I like to do here, this is very important, is I go down to the bottom here and I'm looking at, so now I've got a client cost per user. And that 140 is interesting because we're getting right about what I know a lot of you out there are charging per user. I got my internal cost per user, I've got my cost per computer, and I got my my gross and my gross per user. Now, at the very bottom, I have a cost per added user. So right here, I might sit there and think about this. Well, these guys are in the growth stage. I talked about that when I did my first preliminary eval. And what I did was I realized they're going to add 3 people in the next few months. So to accommodate that, I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to give them 3 more people on this. But when they add additional ones, I'll just put in 140. The sheet is literally this simple to make sure that I stay profitable. Now, one of the most important things I do is come back later on, and this is on this far right one is actual. And what I'm doing here is I'm coming back usually every 3 months, and I'm pulling the numbers down from ConnectWise or AutoTask. I'm doing a report, and I'm mainly concerned about how many hours they're using, although I'm going to make sure if they might have added a few users and add some cost too. Now, the way I always looked at achieving bigger profits with a managed service agreement are reduce my tech support hours, come in hard, fix everything, very proactive, get everything in good shape, and try to bring this number down. So if I quoted them 15 and they get a maximum of 15, doesn't mean they use 15. If I get this number down to 10 per month, and then I go through their backup and I look at their servers and dedupes and get rid of extra things we don't need to be backing up, or they're backed up twice, I get the backup cost down. Now I might have gone up a little here because they added 3 users, and then file sync and share I went up by 3 users, and maybe they added 3 machines. Now what's interesting here is that the profit, and this is why I would always line these things up into the same sheet over and over again. And as you can see, now what's happened is I've got the same profit even though they've added users. However, they've added 3 users. They get to the 4th user. This is 2,800. As you can see, I've gone up by 8% on my gross profit right there. And that's the important thing right there, is that you have the ability to increase profits by using these sheets over and over again and constantly going back and finding ways, because it's right in front of you. You can see if I reduce the tech support hours on this, then I can increase the profit. And it also gives you a plan of attack. You can look at this sheet and you can understand, if I want to make more money on this, what I've got to do is I've got to reduce the things on here I can and control the cost of the increases. So mainly, as I mentioned, find ways to reduce those tech support hours. And that would be coming in really strong to a network and taking care of all those little problems. I would even do things like if they had a problematic router, I'd just buy them a new one. I mean, you spend $400 on a new router. Would you have to spend that $400, or would you rather put a technician out there 10 hours a month dealing with that? Because right there, it's better off you're just taking care of the hardware, rolling it into the next agreement, or even getting them, you pay for it or do some kind of deal with them, reducing backups, adding more services later on renewals, and just making sure you're all over, especially the creep you get with adding users. I can't even tell you how many times, Robert, that I would have a network, and after I'd sign them up and I'd pass them over to my operations people, and they're running them, and I would find out that we had increased dramatically the number of users outside of what the contract is. And I will tell you, this is something you can do in their PSA too. You can have it set so you're controlling number of users, number of computers supported, and then it notifies you with an alert when you go past those thresholds.
So Tom, what you're saying is you can take this tool, and obviously I think you've highlighted a lot of different benefits that you can gain from this alone, but for that example specifically, you can go through the understanding, kind of understand what your thresholds are for this specific client, bake those into your PSA, and then be alerted once they kind of go over those thresholds, and then provide you with an upsell opportunity as their provider.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, that's the big thing. So I was wondering if anyone out there has any questions about how to use this sheet, and what you'd like to know, any specifics. I think I've kept it relatively simple in here, but there is a question.
There is, yeah. Yes, we had Scott came in with, did you bill projects separately? And if so, what qualifies as a project?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I will tell you what I often did. So this is a great question. For smaller contracts under $2,000, I would always bill as a project the onboarding and coming in and taking care of all those preliminary problems, because I just couldn't eat that much. Now, if I had a big contract, it was like $5,000 to $15,000 a month, I would often look at that as, okay, to bring this business on, it's probably competitive. I can probably eat a lot of hours on the front end because the profit's going to be so good after I want them in 3 or 4 months. And I would usually project cost it out, invoice it, but then zero out all the costs on service and show them that it's a part of the contract negotiation to bring them on. I think it's really important that you look, and that's the big thing is that I'm trying to say to everyone is that don't treat every contract the same. Don't get everyone unlimited hours. Give your most to the ones that are going to profit you most. I just believe that you can, and if you have the ability to give up a lot of hours and even profits on the front end to land that contract, then do it. Give it away. I do not like to do, like I know a lot of people like to do a managed service agreement that the price includes server refreshes and PC refreshes and all that kind of stuff. I would usually do all of that built into the contract at a set reduced pricing. And I would even have it so you automatically get 3 users additional on a contract, say this size, that's a 20 user network. You get additional 3 users, and that includes me bringing them on and setting up their PC and doing all that. But what I would do then on that is once they had to have more than that 3, and then they bumped up to the next level, I would have a fee associated with adding on another 3 users. And I would recoup that then. If they put a new server into place, I bill that at the reduced rate on a contract rate.
So you would do projects a little differently. Sometimes you would make a hybrid agreement and just kind of find out what would work best for the client.
You know, this is protection, and that's what I'm talking about, ensuring you make profits. Because what I find out is that I think it's very hard looking forward like 3 years to a server refresh and really knowing what that's going to cost you.
Yep.
I mean, it might get more complex over time, or it might turn into a migration from, say, Exchange to Office 365. All of these things, and you can run into a lot of unknowns. I don't want to lock myself into what this is going to cost me. And you know what? Most clients are going to be very familiar with the idea that even under a service model, if there's a major change to their service or their products they're using, that they have to pay something for that.
I mean, a lot can happen in 3 years.
Yeah. I mean, I would just say, I would always do that. And what's great about project work is it lump sums. Now, I will tell you, it's kind of a different discussion, but on project work, I would always get paid for all hardware upfront prior to ordering. And I would get paid 50% down on all of the estimated project hours. If it's going to be a 40-hour project, estimate 60. You can always give them money back. You're getting 50% down, so probably now you have all your money usually by the end there. But you can give them back. It looks a lot better if you're doing project work and that you are on the high end and come in low on those hours.
Very nice. You know, I think we've addressed a lot of these other questions as you've been going along, Tom. So certainly, folks, if you've got any, you know, again, as Sam had mentioned, you've got the ability to download this costing calculator right now through the webinar agent. So if you want to download that, I don't know if you already have. If you're working, you got any questions, let us know. And as Tom mentioned, he can be available for follow-up conversations on this, or maybe even some other things if we're you know, kind of the ballpark of best practices. You're pretty wide variety.
You know, I have no problem giving anyone out there, you know, an hour to take a look at your contracts, your marketing, whatever you think would really help you out. Feel free to reach out to me. It's going to be tomw@efolder.net. Sam will be sure that goes out in the email because I know that some of the emails come out for me come from a different address. Yep. But we'll make sure that's out there. I have no problem with that. And as a note, we do have the ability to go, if you want to go beyond a couple hours, we have very affordable consulting services we're offering now too.
Wonderful. So with that being said, I think, again, looks like the questions have kind of hit a lull at this point. So we'll take this opportunity to remind everyone that we will, as we've already mentioned, Tom will be on the road doing MSP Ignition on the road in Texas. I think we're hitting Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, and Houston. Maybe not in that particular order here at the first part of June. So if you're in those metros, please keep an eye out and come see us and come see Tom in person. Subsequently, we'll be doing another MSP Ignition in June. I think the details of that are still coming together, but we're really excited about where that is pointing. So again, keep your ears out. And then lastly, subsequent to MSP Ignition, we here at eFolder Accent are doing a lot of different programs trying to bring value to our partner community. And another version of that is with our security series. We're partnering with Webroot. to bring this to the market and really focus in some information from our own Chief Information Security Officer around cybersecurity and the security threats that we're all seeing. The next one of those will be happening next week. So with that, it looks like we haven't indeed hit a spot where I think we can close it. A nice succinct episode today, Tom. Thank you so much for that, as well for the time.
Great, and thank you, Robert. Yeah, exactly what I wanted. Put in 30 minutes. I mean, we all know. I mean, you're here for the tool. I hope it helps you all out. And if you have any questions, just please message me.
All right, and then Sam, always thanks for your help with producing this, and for everyone on the line. We'll see you next time.